This is Dan Dicks here, reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you with breaking news. Tamara Lich, the Canadian Freedom Convoy co-organizer and the co-accused in the longest mischief trial of all time, has received her sentencing today, along with Chris Barber, her co-organizer of the rally. They've been handed down an 18-month conditional sentence. Tamara Lynch also has been served 12-month house arrest, followed by 3.5 months of curfew. She's sentenced to an 18-month conditional sentence minus credit for her time served. Now, I called that over 3 months ago when I said this. There's not a chance in hell Tamara and Chris will be getting 8 years in prison. That is not going to happen. However, some would argue that the conditional sentence is tantamount to a jail sentence, and there is definitely some truth to that. In fact, back in July of 2025, in this video, I explained why even 1 day in prison for either of these two would create the largest protest that Canada has ever seen, and rightly so. And I think the judge correctly recognized that, you know, should they have received even a single day in today's sentence, the entire country would have been absolutely livid, and we would have ended up seeing more of this, which would have been no good for anyone. You know, if you didn't see my 7.5-hour live stream from that day, it was one of the most intense protests I've ever covered. In this live stream here, around the 57 or 58 minute mark, you can see the moment I took a severely brutal jab to the ribs from one of these riot cops, and I ended up dealing with the pain from that for a couple of years. But really, it's nothing compared to what these two have to go through now because of this conditional sentence, and it's absolutely bogus. They should have gotten a complete discharge. But as Tamara says here, thy will, not mine, be done. Trust his plan. Thank you, Canada, and everyone around the world who has sent love, prayers, and support, no matter what happens today. As Chris Barber told the truckers over the CB radio on our trip out a few years ago, we've already won, guys. And indeed, I would have to agree with that. So today we're going to take a quick look at this National Post article. Freedom Convoy organizers Tamara Lich and Chris Barber sentenced to 12 months house arrest. We're going to talk about all of that and much, much more, guys, in this video. But really, really quickly, just before we do, I'd ask that you check out pressfortruth.ca/donate if you do appreciate my efforts to continuously bring you this information, guys. Here you can do a one-time donation with PayPal. You can do Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. You can sign up here or here for a monthly reoccurring contribution. Thank you so much to everybody who does that. You can send an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca, or you can send stuff to my P.O. box, guys. Links for all of this are located in the description below. Again, thank you so much to anybody who just takes 1 minute today to support my efforts here at Press for Truth. All right, guys, let's check this out. Prominent Freedom Convoy organizers Chris Barber and Tamara Lich were sentenced to 12 months house arrest and 6 months of curfew on Tuesday, avoiding jail time for their roles in the 2022 blockade. The accused committed a serious crime of mischief, Ontario Court Justice Heather Perkins McVeigh told a packed downtown Ottawa courtroom on Tuesday. The accused actions have had a significant detrimental effect on the citizens of Ottawa, who wanted nothing more than to carry on living in their community without having horns honking day and night and the roads impassable, blocking the noisy trucks emitting diesel fumes, making it impossible at times to even exit their own building. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. When we were not allowed to fly, I wasn't allowed to get on an airplane due to being unvaccinated. I wasn't allowed to go to any major events, go to any restaurants or anything of that nature. Complete, like, house arrest lockdown, essentially. In fact, at one point, they tried to suggest that we couldn't even leave the province Never mind fly out of the country. Of course, I civilly disobeyed that and showed you how to get through a COVID-19 84 travel checkpoint with Press for Truth. If you haven't seen that one, guys, I'll put a link in the description. But again, this is just ridiculous to say that their actions had a significant detrimental effect on the citizens of Ottawa who wanted nothing more to carry on living. The reason why they are there in the first place is because the majority of, Canadian citizens who are against the mandates were not allowed to carry on their daily lives and living without having to take the vaccination. That's what this whole thing was all about in the first place. So, spare me your concerns about some of the people who had to deal with a little bit of honking. What about the rest of us who... Many people lost their jobs. Many people, I had to miss out on all sorts of amazing opportunities because I wasn't able to fly out of the country. No. We got to worry about some people who were slightly inconvenienced by some honking downtown in Ottawa. Barber and Lich's 18-month conditional sentences began with 12 months of house arrest, followed by 6 months of curfew between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. They must also conduct 100 hours of community service. Again, this is obviously better than jail time, which would have been, detrimental to the courts and Canada, really, had that come about. But curfew, having to stay in from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. is ridiculous. And 12 months of house arrest, again, that is tantamount to a jail sentence. I believe as part of the conditions, they are only allowed to leave in cases of extreme emergencies. And also, I do believe if they want to attend any kind of religious services. And, I figure, hey, what's to stop anybody from going to church 7 days a week? So maybe they could get around that with a little bit of a loophole there. But in any case, in both cases, the accused can leave their homes under certain conditions, including to go to work or visit certain family members. One judge noted that Tamara Lich is going to be having the birth of her grandchild soon, and they were going to allow her to leave for that reason. But any other day-to-day reasons, no. They're on strict lockdown. Having already spent the equivalent of just over 70 days in jail, Lich's time under curfew will only be 3.5 months instead of the full 6. With her decision, Perkins McVeigh rejected both sentencing submissions by the Crown for an unprecedented 7 and 8 year sentence in prison by the defense for an unconditional discharge. Again, I said that a while back, that there's no chance in hell that they're going to be getting 8 and 7 years in prison. That's just simply not going to happen. And here we are. Of course, that is the case. But again, 12 months of conditional sentencing, being on house arrest, being under curfew, is tantamount to a jail sentence. This is, again, a grave injustice here when you can have 2 Canadian citizens who organized a legal and legitimate protest be handed down any kind of a sentence of this sort. It absolutely should have been an absolute discharge. Earlier this year, Perkins McVeigh ruled that Lich and Barber were guilty of mischief for their role in organizing the 3-week protest that paralyzed downtown Ottawa in February of 2022 at the height of the COVID-19 84 pandemic. Barber was also found guilty of counseling others to disobey a court order, an injunction blocking trucks from honking continuously at all times during the day. Oh no. Again, it pales in comparison to what those of us in the fringe minority had to go through in terms of not being able to travel ourselves, not being able to go out and do, the daily things that we need to and want to do. We were essentially on strict lockdown during that time. So having to deal with a little bit of honking is really no big deal. Lich and Barber were key organizers of the polarizing anti-government protests that blocked downtown Ottawa around Parliament Hill in 2022. Perkins McVeigh described Lich as the face of the convoy and Barber as a rock star for the movement. As I understand it, they received standing ovation and applause from everybody who was in attendance at the courtroom. And rightly so. You know, what they did kind of sparked a global movement. People all over the world were inspired by the trucker protest, and it caused many people to protest the lockdown measures that were happening all over the world. It was like a ripple effect that these two created. As a testament to their popularity within the movement, supporters in the courtroom swarmed and applauded Lich and Barber after sentencing, and as the hearing was adjourned. On Tuesday, Perkins McVeigh noted that both parties could not be further apart in their sentencing requests, describing it as an illustration of the political schism in the Canadian political landscape. Politics, though, has no place inside this courtroom and plays no role in the determination of what is fair, just, and appropriate sentence. Again, there's nothing fair, just, or appropriate about this. A lot of people are celebrating today that, yay, they didn't go to jail. Well, 12 months curfew, house arrest, curfew between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., having to check in with a supervisor, not being allowed to leave unless it's under strict, extreme conditions for work or for emergencies, is absolutely inappropriate. Again, it's just a grave injustice, in my view, that they've even gotten anything less than an absolute discharge. Ontario prosecutors sought 8 years in prison for Barber and 7 for Lich. They also requested an order to seize Barber's truck, a 2004 Kenworth long-haul truck nicknamed Big Red, which he brought to Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy. And that one's not over, guys. They're still going to be dealing with that. So we'll have to keep you updated on that one too. Perkins McVeigh described the Crown's request as extraordinary and unprecedented. The Crown's request sparked much controversy in Ottawa and beyond, with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calling the submission political vengeance. The guy who only, chimes in when it's popular enough to, often after the fact. Just trying to use this as some sort of a campaign ticket to help him get reselected in the upcoming election. This guy's a stooge and a hack. He always just chimes in when it's at the last hour or when it's going to be beneficial to him, calling it political vengeance. Again, all too little, all too late. Lich and Barber's lawyer requested an absolute discharge, meaning they would not receive a criminal record, and that's exactly what they should have gotten. An absolute discharge for, again, organizing a very legitimate, a very legal protest, where it was the Canadian government who did things illegally. They're the ones who shut down people's bank accounts. They're the ones who invoked the Emergencies Act. They're the ones who wanted to put military men disguised as police officers in spread out in the protests. That all came out. But no, Lich and Barber are the ones who don't deserve absolute discharge and, are being handed down this ridiculous sentence. Tamara Lich and Chris Barber stood up for what they believed in and what many people, thousands of people across the country were not capable of standing up for. And those people were inspired, Lich's lawyer, Lawrence Greenspan, told reporters in July. Perkins McVeigh reiterated Tuesday that the Freedom Convoy led by both accused had significant negative impacts on both residents and the businesses in downtown Ottawa. You want to talk about the negative impact on businesses? How about the fact that these lockdown measures destroyed hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses in the weeks, months, and years to follow the strict lockdown orders? Like, there are so many people who have not been able to recover from what the government did, not from what COVID did, from what the government did during that time. And they want to talk about the negative impacts on residents and businesses in downtown Ottawa. Again, how about we consider the negative impacts to the, millions and millions of Canadians who just simply didn't want to go along with the medical experimentation of taking these experimental mRNA injections just so they could go to work or go to a restaurant or travel. I wasn't having any of that. And kudos to everyone watching here who also stood your ground and didn't cave to the demands of this medical tyranny by doing what you know was something you didn't need to do. Most people who I know who took the vax did so purely through coercion. It had nothing to do with, being protected against COVID, and had everything to do with just trying to maintain their lives, being able to keep their jobs, or being able to travel for work and things of that nature. So again, let's think about the impacts on the Canadian citizens and their businesses rather than the minor inconvenience that these people had to go through in downtown Ottawa. The downtown core was, in essence, held hostage, the judge said. No, the Canadian people were held hostage when we were on strict lockdowns and told, like I said, that we couldn't even travel outside of the province. Never mind the country, even the province. I did prove in this video that you could still do that. You just had to stand your ground and inform these police officers that no, this goes against my constitutionally protected rights to be able to travel freely. And they ended up agreeing with me and letting me go through. But again, we're not, nobody was held hostage anywhere compared to what people who were unvaccinated had to go through. The Freedom Convoy in Ottawa involved thousands of protesters and hundreds of trucks. But also, she also noted that Lich and Barber have already faced significant and relevant consequences resulting from the criminal proceedings. Yeah, they've had ridiculous bail conditions already. They've already served some jail time. And that's already been a grave injustice. So not only should they have been given an absolute discharge, but they should be compensated for all the nonsense they've already gone through, really. She noted that Barber and his bank accounts were frozen for months following the Freedom Convoy, and he currently faces a $9 million civil lawsuit, $9 million lawsuit for his role in the blockade. Furthermore, a criminal conviction would jeopardize his cross-border trucking business. So they're not out of the hot water by any means. Lich said she's already served 49 days in jail, endured strict bail conditions, and faced public vilification. And the judge said that the decision on the order to seize Barber's truck is still going to come in November. So they still may come down with the heavy hand of the law on these people who should be completely innocent of any wrongdoing. So again, if you're, cheering for the fact that, yay, no jail time, just remember everything that's happening to them is tantamount to jail time, and it's a grave injustice here in Canada. Before the hearing, dozens of Lich and Barber backers crowded in front of the building to voice their support for the two convoy organizers. Ottawa police arrested at least one individual among the crowd before the beginning of the hearing. So there it is, guys. That's the breaking news. Again, yes, it's good that these guys are not going to be going to jail because, again, I think the judge recognized what would happen if anything like that were to go down. But at the same time, a grave injustice has been committed today by this judge for giving them, house arrest, curfews, 18-month conditional sentencing. It's absolutely bogus, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think that the judge was kind of put in an awkward position here where she had to, please everybody who was against what these guys did, while at the same time obviously not condemning them to jail, and so they went for the 18-month conditional sentence? I think it should have been an absolute discharge. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But bottom line is, at the end of the day, this is a bad sign for Canada when two people can get a sentence like this for, again, doing nothing more than organizing a legitimate legal protest that was absolutely necessary at the time. Again, let me know what you guys think. And once again, if you do appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, don't forget to check me out at pressfortruth.ca/donate. You can check that top link in the description below. And that's all for today, guys. Just wanted to bring you the breaking news. Please click that thumbs up button. Make sure you share this video with your friends and family who you think need to see it the most. And stay tuned, guys. I will have more video reports coming soon, God willing. This is Dan Dicks reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.